It was a breezy afternoon at Andrews Air Force Base, and the sun was beginning to dip low, painting the sky in soft hues of orange and pink. Airmen moved briskly across the base, preparing for an important event, the promotion ceremony of Captain Amelia Brooks. At just 32, Amelia was already a rising star in the Air Force, known for her courage, leadership, and relentless dedication. Rumors had quietly circulated that a special guest might attend, none other than President Donald Trump. Most dismissed it as unlikely. After all, unannounced visits from the president were rare. But just as the band began tuning their instruments, and the flags were being raised, a motorcade rolled onto the tarmac. Secret Service agents stepped out first, scanning the area, and then there he was. Donald Trump, smiling and waving, strode confidently toward the assembled airmen. Amelia froze. She hadn't expected this, and neither had anyone else. The ceremony had been planned as a small gathering of close family and peers, but Trump's surprise presence changed everything. "Good afternoon, everyone," he called out warmly. "I heard someone special was getting promoted today, so I figured I'd drop by and see for myself." The crowd applauded, some nervously, others with genuine excitement. Amelia's heart pounded. She wasn't used to this kind of spotlight. She had only invited her parents and younger brother, and now, the leader of the free world stood just a few feet away, shaking hands with commanders and posing for quick photos. As Amelia stood in awe, was this going to change everything about her special day? Amelia squared her shoulders. Matter what happened, today was about service, not politics, and she was determined to honor that. Colonel Harris, the commanding officer, stepped up to the podium and cleared his throat. "Ladies and gentlemen, today we gather to recognize the extraordinary service of Captain Amelia Brooks," he began, glancing briefly toward President Trump, who nodded respectfully. Amelia stood at attention, her uniform crisp, her medals gleaming in the golden light of the setting sun. Her parents beamed with pride from the small crowd, while her 14-year-old brother Evan clutched a bouquet of wildflowers, too shy to hold them properly. Colonel Harris continued, recounting Amelia's years of service, her overseas deployments, humanitarian missions, late nights training, new recruits, and the countless lives touched by her quiet but powerful leadership. Each word settled deeply into the hearts of those listening. Even Trump, known for his commanding presence, seemed uncharacteristically still, focused entirely on her story. Amelia's mind, however, raced. She remembered the hard days, the isolation, the missions that ended in loss, the doubts she kept to herself. She had never craved recognition. She only ever wanted to serve. When her name was finally called, her legs felt like stone, but she stepped forward, saluted sharply, and stood before the colonel. Her new rank insignia gleamed inside the box he held, and as her family was invited up to pin it to her shoulders, Amelia felt the weight of every sacrifice and every triumph come full circle. Amelia caught President Trump's eye. He wasn't smiling now. His expression had shifted to one of quiet respect, as if he saw something in her that others often overlooked. The crowd clapped warmly as young Evan shyly stepped forward to pin the new bars onto her uniform. Amelia knelt slightly to help him reach, a lump rising in her throat. When she stood again, she had officially become Major Brooks. The moment was overwhelming, but then, something even more unexpected happened. Trump stepped forward, not as the president, but simply as a man. The crowd instinctively parted as he approached the podium. Even Colonel Harris stepped aside, uncertain of what was coming next. Trump leaned toward the microphone, and instead of launching into a political speech, he spoke softly. "You know," he began, "I've met a lot of people who wear this nation's uniform, brave men, brave women, but once in a while, you meet someone whose spirit just stands a little taller." He turned to Amelia. "Major Brooks, today, it's not just your rank that's rising, it's your example." A gentle murmur moved through the crowd, touched by the sincerity in his tone. Amelia stood frozen, blinking fast, trying to hold back emotion. Then Trump reached into his jacket pocket. "And with your permission," he said, "I'd like to give you a small gift, not from me as president, but from me as a fellow American." As a grateful American, Trump opened his hand to reveal a simple silver coin, a presidential challenge coin, the kind rarely given out personally. It shimmered under the setting sun as he placed it in Amelia's palm and gently closed her fingers around it. Though small, the coin felt heavier than gold. After the ceremony, the atmosphere turned warm, and celebratory people mingled. Snapped photos, and congratulated Amelia on her promotion. But Trump didn't rush off like many expected. Instead, he lingered, moving through the modest crowd, shaking hands and thanking service members for their duty. He even chatted with Amelia's parents, making her mother laugh nervously, and her father, a retired mechanic, beamed with pride. Amelia stood a little apart, the coin still clenched in her hand, its weight grounding her. She had served quietly for years, never seeking recognition. And yet, in one unforgettable afternoon, she had received more than she ever imagined. Evan, noticing her standing alone, tugged on her sleeve and whispered, "You were awesome." Amelia smiled, ruffled his hair, and in that small, proud moment, felt more seen than ever before. Then, to everyone's surprise, Trump returned to her side, not for cameras or speeches, but simply to talk. "You remind me of someone," he said softly. "Someone from years ago. A young pilot who never looked for headlines either." Amelia tilted her head, curious. "Who?" Trump smiled wistfully. "My Uncle Fred used to tell me stories. Heroes don't always wear capes." He paused, tapping his heart. "Sometimes they just show up, like you did. They wear dusty boots and quiet smiles." His words struck something deep inside her. But before leaving, Trump did one last thing no one expected. He called over an aide, whispered something, and moments later, the aide returned with a crisp white envelope. Trump handed it to Amelia with a serious look. "This isn't for today," he said. "It's for a day when you doubt yourself, when you wonder if it was all worth it. Promise me you'll open it then." Amelia stared at the envelope. No official seal, just her name handwritten in bold. Major Amelia Brooks. She nodded slowly. Trump shook her hand one last time, firm and deliberate, then turned to the crowd, gave a final wave, and disappeared into the twilight with his motorcade. Amelia stood frozen, the envelope in one hand, the challenge coin in the other. The night air felt heavier than before, thick with meaning. Something told her this day would stay with her forever, though she had no idea how true that would soon become. In the weeks that followed, Major Brooks threw herself into her new role, taking on more responsibility than ever. But with the new rank came new burdens: paperwork, politics, budget cuts. It all piled up quickly. She found herself trapped behind a desk instead of leading in the field, where her heart had always been. Some nights, she sat alone in her dimly lit office, staring at the blank walls, wondering if this was truly the future she'd worked so hard to reach. The loneliness settled in, and her once unshakable sense of purpose began to feel brittle, like glass under pressure, ready to shatter. After a hard night and a grueling meeting that left her questioning everything, Amelia slumped in her chair, drained and defeated. That's when she remembered the envelope, still unopened, still waiting. Her hands trembled slightly as she pulled it from the back of her desk drawer. Was this the moment he meant? She turned it over in her hands. Nothing fancy, just plain white paper. No presidential seal, no official letterhead. She hesitated, then slowly broke the seal. Inside was a single sheet of thick, cream-colored paper. The handwriting was unmistakably Trump's, bold, confident. The letter read, "Dear Major Brooks, when the days feel heavy, remember this. True leaders aren't born during easy times, they're forged during the storms. You chose service over self. That is your legacy, that is your power. Never forget. If no one's watching, even if no one's clapping, what you do matters, and you are not invisible. You are the heart of this nation. Stay strong." With deep respect, Donald J. Trump. Amelia sat back, blinking hard. The words landed like a punch and a hug all at once. Carefully, she folded the letter and tucked it into her uniform pocket. A small flame sparked inside her, the kind she thought had gone out. She wasn't here for applause. She wasn't chasing rank or recognition. She was here for her airmen, the ones who needed a leader with heart, not politics, not ego, just someone who saw them. That night, she walked a long path back to the barracks, the stars glittering overhead. As she passed the quiet training fields, she felt her purpose return, quiet, steady, and stronger than ever. As young recruits jogged under the floodlights, Amelia watched them and saw a reflection of her younger self, hopeful, determined, uncertain, but willing. And for the first time in days, she smiled. Major Brooks was back, and she was just getting started. The next morning, she gathered her squadron. No long speeches, no grand gestures, just a message spoken from the heart. Every one of you matters. Whether you feel it today or not, your service and your sacrifice are the heartbeat of this nation. Some faces lit up, others looked surprised, even skeptical, but the words stayed with them. In the weeks that followed, something shifted. Morale rose. Her squadron trained harder, supported each other more, and the atmosphere grew lighter. Even her superiors took notice. "Whatever you're doing, Brooks," Colonel Harris remarked one afternoon, "keep doing it." Amelia just smiled. She wasn't doing anything extraordinary, just passing on what had been given to her. A reminder, a lifeline, a spark of hope. Quietly, word of the letter spread around the base. There were no headlines, no viral videos, just hushed conversations. "Did you hear what Trump wrote to Major Brooks? Can you believe he took the time?" And slowly, even the most cynical recruits began to feel something shift. It wasn't about politics anymore. It was about connection, about the idea that someone powerful had taken a moment to see a single, quiet sacrifice and say, "You matter." The atmosphere on base changed, and Amelia knew it wasn't just her who had been lifted, it was all of them. It wasn't just her, it was everyone. 3 months later, Amelia received an unexpected phone call. "Major Brooks," the voice on the line said, "the President would like to invite you to a private ceremony honoring unsung heroes of the military." She was stunned. Fancy events weren't her thing. She preferred muddy boots over marble floors. But something deep inside whispered, "Go." So, a few weeks later, in her dress uniform and with a racing heart, Amelia walked into the East Room of the White House. She wasn't there for applause or recognition. She was there because sometimes just showing up is an act of courage. The room was filled with service members from every branch, soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, each carrying their own quiet story of sacrifice. When Trump entered, his presence filled the room without a word. He didn't give a political speech. Instead, he told stories of medics who saved lives, pilots who diverted disaster, and cooks who lifted morale through simple acts of kindness. And as he spoke, he looked at each person, not just at them, but into them. When he reached Amelia, he paused. "Major Brooks reminded me," he said gently, "that the strongest leaders are often the quietest." Tears welled in her eyes because he saw her. After the ceremony, as the room emptied, Trump motioned for her to stay behind. He approached with a small, unmarked box. Inside was another challenge coin, but this one was different. Etched into its surface were the words, "For those who lead when no one watches." He handed it to her quietly. "No cameras, no press release," he said with a faint smile. "Just between you and me." Amelia's voice caught. "Thank you, sir." Trump nodded. "Never stop leading, Major. This country needs people like you more than ever." In that moment, Amelia understood true leadership wasn't about fame or recognition. It was about faithfulness, especially when no one was watching. That night, she wrote a letter to Evan. She told him about the ceremony, the second coin, and what it meant to lead quietly. "You don't have to be loud to change the world," she wrote. "You just have to care enough to keep going." Evan would be starting high school soon, and she wanted him to carry that truth with him, that life wasn't about chasing approval, it was about chasing purpose, and she hoped he'd remember it long after she was gone. Time didn't slow down. After that, in fact, it sped up. Amelia's responsibilities grew. Deployments, new recruits, sudden emergencies. Every day brought new challenges, some exhilarating, others exhausting. But whenever doubt crept in, she would reach into her pocket, feel the coin's edges or the folds of Trump's letter, and remember she wasn't alone. She was part of something bigger, something worth fighting for, something worth believing. One evening, after returning from a particularly difficult overseas deployment, Amelia sat down and wrote a letter, this time to Trump. "Dear Mr. President," she began, "you probably won't remember me, Major Amelia Brooks. You gave me a letter on the hardest day of my career. You told me I wasn't invisible. You were right. I just wanted you to know I passed that hope on, and it made a difference. Thank you." She never expected a reply, and she was okay with that, because sometimes, Amelia realized, it's enough just to say thank you. Over time, she came to understand that it wasn't grand gestures that changed lives. It was the quiet words, the unnoticed encouragements, the small acts of belief planted like seeds in weary hearts. She became that kind of leader for her squadron, one who remembered birthdays, checked in when someone looked worn down, and left handwritten notes of encouragement tucked inside lockers. And slowly, a quiet miracle unfolded. Hope began to spread, because kindness, like courage, is contagious. On her next leave, Amelia surprised Evan by showing up at his freshman football game. Sitting on cold metal bleachers, she cheered louder than anyone. When Evan spotted her, his grin stretched from ear to ear. Later, she handed him a small package. Inside was a simple challenge, coin not presidential this time, but engraved with the words "Quiet Strength." "You earned this," she said softly. Evan hugged her tightly. No more words were needed. Years passed. Amelia rose through the ranks, slowly, steadily. Her influence reached far beyond her base. She mentored young officers, shaped future leaders, and quietly built a legacy not in headlines, but in hearts. All because, once upon a time, someone had stopped, seen her, and said, "You matter." And she never forgot it, not for a single day. Then one quiet afternoon, long after Trump's presidency had ended, Amelia received a letter. It was handwritten and short. "Dear Major Brooks," it read, "I told you once that you were the heart of this nation. You still are. Proud of you, always. Donald J. Trump." Smiling, Amelia tucked it gently beside the others in her keepsake box. As she looked out at the bright blue sky, she understood with certainty, the quiet ones really do change the world, one small act at a time.